And we'll move on to roll call. I'll turn it over to Commissioner Rasmussen.
Commissioner Britton. Here. Commissioner Fisher.
Here.
Chair Frazier.
Here.
Commissioner Knable. Commissioner Rasmussen. Here. Commissioner Stevens.
Here.
Commissioner Wright. Here. Thank you.
Thank you. Item 3 is approval of the agenda. Unless there are any additions or modifications, I'd look for a motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
I have a motion to approve from Commissioner Fisher. I have a second.
Second.
Second from Commissioner Wright. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed say no. Carries 6-0. We'll move on to item 4, which is open forum. This is the time where anyone who's in the audience who'd like to speak on something that is not on the agenda tonight can approach the podium, state your name and address for the record. So at this time, I'll open forum. Again, anything that's not on tonight's agenda someone would like to address. All right, seeing none, I'll close open forum. Item 5 is Chair's explanation of the hearing process. The Planning Commission is a volunteer advisory group to the City Council. One of the Commission's functions is to hold public hearings and make recommendations on land use and zoning matters. The purpose of these public hearings is to provide an opportunity for each applicant and citizens to present information, ask questions, and express opinions. Since these proceedings are televised and recorded for the public record, anyone wishing to speak up must step to the podium and give their name and address before addressing the Commission. Staff reports are prepared and provided to the applicant and Planning Commission in advance of the meeting. The first step in the hearing will be for staff to present a summary of the report. The applicant will then have the opportunity to briefly explain the proposal and provide additional information or comments. Anyone wishing to speak in favor or against the proposal will then be heard. Upon completion of the testimony, the hearing will be closed to public comment. The Planning Commission will then discuss and act on the matter. 2 complete agenda packets are available for viewing on the back table. Please do not remove those items. The City Council will act on these items at their meeting on Wednesday, March 15th, 2023, which starts at 7 p.m. With that, we'll move on to item 6, 6.1, which is Rocket Car Wash, SP 2023-004, CUP 2023-004, and PUD 2023-004 with Connor Jakes presenting.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the Commission. Great to be with you this evening for an exciting redevelopment project. The proposal before you is for a Rocket Car Wash site, and for your consideration is a site plan review, plan unit development, and conditional use permit. Proposed location is the current Big O Tire site off of East Point Douglas Road South. Adjacent to that is the current Wendy's restaurant and also Target. Then also just to make note, it's adjacent to Jamaica Avenue South as well as Highway 61. A little background on the site. The site was originally developed in 1991 for a proposed automotive repair use, and then in 1992 that applicant actually came back and proposed a minor subdivision lot split, and the intent at the time was for that northern part of the building to be used for potential office tenants. And then currently it's occupied by Big O Tires, and it's been occupied by an automotive repair use ever since the original approvals in 1991. So the proposal before you is for a drive-through car wash. A drive-through car wash is a conditional use within the mixed-use zoning district. And we'll also note the applicant is requesting a planned unit development. Initially, as we worked through plans with the applicant, it was clear that there was going to be some flexibility required, mostly due to a 30-foot easement that runs on the northwest and southwest property lines, as seen here. And the 2 items of flexibility requested will be the front yard parking lot setback and then the overstory tree count, just because that plantable area is pretty minimized due to that easement. And then moving into the site plan review, the site access is off the internal private drive. This is the same way that Wendy's gets their access, as well as the other commercial businesses through here. There is a separate entrance exit lane proposed that's split by a pork chop in order to improve site flow and just ease of use for car wash users. Also note the trash enclosure is towards the entrance of the site, and those materials will match the principal structure, and then the building does meet all applicable setbacks. Moving into vehicle parking, there's 20 stalls proposed, and talking with the applicant, it was clear that this was sufficient enough for the use, considering the principal use is the car wash and accessory is the use of vacuums. Also taking into account the amount of time that it takes a person to kind of vacuum out their car, it became clear that 20 stalls was sufficient enough and ample as people kind of file in and out. And then also noting stacking, there are 34 stacking spots proposed. Code requires 4. The applicant wanted to minimize any negative impacts to adjacent properties, especially the idea of kind of backing up into that kind of private drive access, influencing access to Target and the other sites. So I wanted to provide ample stacking there. In the architecture, as you're well aware, code requires 65% Class 1 materials. The applicant's proposing a substantial increase of that at 83%. And it was clear from initial conversations, they recognize, the site is a prominent spot in the community, access right off the highway in Jamaica. So I wanted to kind of build up that architecture just to make it kind of look well-rounded and nice. The material list is before you, as well as some renderings as well. And the applicant also did provide some renderings from the adjacent roadways. So this rendering is from Jamaica Avenue South to get an idea of what that would look like. And then this one's from Highway 61. The landscape plan does meet all requirements besides the overstory trees, as mentioned before. I will also note that code requires all the stacking lanes and stacking be screened. So the applicant achieved this by using the principal structure to screen from Jamaica Avenue and then landscaping throughout the rest of the site. And then one thing I did want to note was that adjacent to that access, there's a 2-foot tall landscape berm to kind of screen any initial stacking. And as far as outdoor lighting, it does meet all code requirements, no negative impacts to the adjacent properties. With that, I'll leave the recommendation before you. Staff is available for any questions, as well as the applicant is in attendance as well.
All right, thank you. Any questions for staff? Commissioner Britton.
In regards to the trash enclosure, I know that you guys have rules for distances and things along those lines. Is that enough room for a garbage truck to point in that way and then be able to back out?
Yep, yeah, so Mr. Chair, Commissioner Britton, it does meet all the setbacks. In this case, the applicant's proposing that the on-site employees would pull out those trash bins, and then the garbage truck would pull straight in, and then use that, and then they'd roll them back into the enclosure.
Okay.
And then that's also a condition of approval as well, to have those within the enclosure.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Commissioner Rasmussen.
Yeah, regarding the overstory trees, I know there's that large 30-foot utility easement on 2 sides of the property. Are we not able to plant trees in that area because of the utilities, or can you explain that a little bit?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, Commissioner Rasmussen, that is correct. Generally, we like to keep all landscape plantings out of that easement. Sometimes there's like smaller shrubs allowed, but generally we try to keep overstory trees out of there. Just taking into account like root systems and stuff, keeping them away from any of the infrastructure in there.
Understood, thanks.
Any other questions for staff? All right, thank you. This time, if the applicant would like to approach the podium and provide any additional comment.
Thank you for your time this evening. My name is Jeremiah Harder. I'm our Director of Project Management and Real Estate Development for City Ventures, the parent company of Rocket Car Wash. My address is 222 South 14th Street, Suite 1404, Omaha, Nebraska. Appreciate the time. We've worked with the planning and zoning staff here to work through this site. Obviously, we've noted this site as a site that we would like to move forward in building our site. We are currently building out our Minneapolis and surrounding area market right now. This is one of several sites at right now, current time. I think we're looking at between 8 to 10 sites across the entire metro area, as well as building towards our portfolio. Currently, we have 30 active sites across the United States. By year end, we'll be close to about 60 to 75 sites active across the United States here. This model here is our standard building model. It's one of those that we have spent a lot of time, as well as a standard layout, to ensure, one, that it's a quality building. Like, we don't want to put up anything that's quick and easy. Typically, our building costs are 30% higher than our competitors. Our equipment costs are twice the cost of our competitors. But we do that for a reason. We want a quality building, we want a quality experience for our customers. Everything we do is better improve our customers' experience. And that goes down to the layout of the site, where we've talked about, where Connor was gracious enough to explain a little bit about that pork chop at the entrance to make sure that there's no confusion in vehicle traffic flow and whatnot on site, wayfind signage on site, making sure that our building materials are aesthetically pleasing, to how we process our cars from the POS lane to the queuing and stacking into our wash, as well as the duration and time that they spend in the wash themselves. Few of the things that we do that are a little bit different than you'll see in your normal express car wash is we do have several amenities that we offer to our members and to the public that come in and wash. A lot of that is, we offer free detailing materials. So if you need to come in and want to detail the interior of your car, we have our members room where there's matte wash machines, stuff like that. We have specialized custom machines that we have designed ourselves that are able to accept like the WeatherGuard formed mats and whatnot that can't typically go through those machines, as well as cleaning products and chemicals so they can clean and detail out their own side of their car. So like I said, everything we've done here is really to push, the customer experience as well as being a positive influence in the community. With that, Rocket Car Wash, we pride ourselves in being a member of the community. Several things you'll see that we've done historically throughout our time is volunteer efforts with local community outreach programs. We allow them to do fundraising with us. We donate we've donated hundreds of thousands of dollars to date to community programs and in the communities that we go into. Again, we really look to become a part of that community as well. So that point in time, any questions you guys may have for me, I would feel more than willing to answer them for you.
All right, thank you. Any questions for the applicant?
I have one.
Commissioner
Kinda
Fisher.
silly. How long does it take for a car to go from start to finish through?
On
Because
av-
as I'm looking at the stacking in 34 cars, I mean, if I was the 34th car, I'd probably come back another time. But I'm just wondering how long it takes to go through the wash process.
2.5 minutes on average.
Wow, that's fast. That is rocket
We're gonna
wash.
time you.
Please do. No, and then that's part of the reason why we add twice the amount of equipment. It goes into the process of how you get a clean car. It's touch points on the car. It's also your chemical makeup and stuff, what you're using in the car, when you're using it. By adding more touch points with equipment on the car, we're able to increase our belt speed, so we're able to process cars faster. And it also ties into your POS system for your point of sale on how you can queue and stack those cars and get them processed quickly. We've spent a lot of time on that aspect of this because, again, we like to have members, not just once and, one-time customers. We like to have members. And if they have to constantly go there and wait to get into the car wash, chances of them like signing up for a membership are less.
Right. Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Wright?
So there's a point in Minnesota where my car starts blending in with its environment, like the predator, kind of like under the sweater, right? So is this going to be like a seasonal thing? Like, are you able to like operate all year long with it?
Yes.
Because and I asked this because I've gone to other places and it just, because the cold sheerly just like makes it to where it doesn't even operate. The water pressure can't come through. It just freezes over or whatever. So
No, we operate in several northern states. Nebraska has very similar, we don't get as much snow as you guys got here lately.
Yeah.
But Nebraska, Iowa, Ohio, Washington State, very similar things. So we've designed and engineered our systems that they operate year-round.
okay, cool. Appreciate it.
Commissioner Rasmussen?
I'd like to talk about parking just a little bit and what the overall plan is. It seems like we had about 20 parking stalls, although they also appeared to be mostly vacuum stalls. Not sure how many people, employees and staff you'll have, but I'd imagine a big facility might have 10, 15, who knows how, several employees. So how do we handle the employee parking versus having bays open for vacuuming? Is there going to be a shared parking agreement or how does that work?
Yeah, so first of all, on this site here, we probably have between 4 to 5 employees on site actually at one point in time. We have, our pay stations are manned. So we have 2 POS lanes there, so there'll be people there. There'll be one person at the entrance of the tunnel to guide cars in, one at the control station, and then one, usually roaming and doing various duties across the site there. We do have in the ECRs a joint parking agreement with the Target parking lot there as well. For if push came to shove, we would be willing to allow our employees to park in a vacuum stall, if need be. But we are planning on using that ECR agreement for the joint parking.
Very good, thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions? I'm also going to ask about parking. And so you said that this is a standard kind of layout and setup for your properties across all of your holdings, correct?
Yes.
And so the amount of vacuum lots that you have, that's based on your business plan and your other properties, that number is sufficient to meet the demand?
Yes.
Okay. And where I'm going with this is, it's kind of an odd lot. We've got some outlots, and so you're asking for some flexibility, saying, well, we need all of these parking stalls, and in lieu of that, we can't plant as many trees, right? That's my understanding of it, is you need all of
Yeah, the
these.
easement there is one of the other restrictions that we
Yeah.
have as well, but yes. And on that, with the landscaping as well, we're also overdoing it with the amount of shrubs, and this, I think we have, I believe, 100 and something, like 3-foot size shrubs, 3 to 6 foot size shrubs there as well, so by not being able to do the one, we're trying to also do more of the other to balance that out.
Sure. And my concern was just, and I wanted to clarify with you, is based on the size of this facility, you believe that the 20 vacuum stalls are going to be necessary in order to meet the need?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Anything else? All right, thank you.
Yeah, thank you for your time.
All right, at this time, I'll open public hearing on this application. Anyone wishing to speak for or against the application may step to the podium, state your name and address for the record.
Hi, my name is Lisa Hartfield. I live at 8068 Hornell Avenue South in Cottage Grove. I'm not either for or against, it's just this is my only opportunity that I can even discuss this, because by the time it gets to city council, I won't be able to. Has anybody given any thought to the additional cars? In that parking area, there's a lot of potholes right now, and I think when I read on the first sheet of the plan sheet, in a note, it said that they're hoping for like 800 cars a day, 600 to 800. So right now, there's a lot of potholes, going into Target right next to that building. And also with the additional cars, there was a study on 61 and Jamaica saying that that intersection was at or near capacity, and that was in 2018 or 2019. Now, if we're gonna add another 800 plus cars possibly, and I just wanted to make note of that because I won't get another opportunity to say anything about this.
Sure. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any additional public comments? All right, at this time, I'll close public hearing on this, and I'll turn it over to Amanda Meyer to answer questions on that, I think.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the commission. So this is an interesting area. So this area south of East Point Douglas, you have a variety of tenants. So you have Target, you have Cottage Grove Plaza, Top 10 Liquor, Orange Theory, Taco Bell, Wendy's, and this site. They all have what's called an OEA. So it's Operation Easement Agreement that allows them to do shared access. So if you recall, there's the existing access kind of between Top 10 and Orange Theory where there's an existing light, and then there's that access over by the Cottage Grove Plaza kind of Cub entrance area. So as far as the concern about potholes and those sorts of things, it is a private access, and I believe that's all within that agreement between the different businesses to work through kind of the maintenance of that private area. As we look at traffic, so there have been studies done. Right now, those interchanges are operating at an acceptable level of service, and those are areas we're continuing to monitor. And as most of you might be aware of, our East Point Jamaica project that we'll be starting construction on this year, assuming we get good bids and award a project, we will be helping to kind of mitigate some of those traffic congestion issues we see along East Point at that Jamaica intersection as well, just kind of east of there. So,
Great. Thank you.
yep.
Commissioner Brennan.
So understanding that any additional traffic and wear and tear on the road is not the city's responsibility. Do we have, as a city, a concern with that parking area and the state of repair of it right now? Is there anything, how often do we check or monitor, and is there something actively going on, or potentially when our construction project kicks off, is that parking lot and the potholes going to be mediated at all?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, members of the commission. So I'm not aware of any sort of process that the city has to do any inspections or kind of communicating with the private property owners on their parking lots or access routes. I'd be happy to chat with some of our staff internally and see if it's something we've done before. Definitely, if there's concerns, we can pass them along to those who own and maintain those areas and let them know that it's an area of concern and put it on their radar to probably do some maintenance. But unfortunately, I'm not sure that we have a process in place to do that routinely.
So I was going to ask about that as well, and is this a place where code enforcement would be able to go to a property and say, this has become a problem now and it needs to be done, even though it's a private development?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, members of the commission. So that's something that code enforcement generally does every spring and then follows up, throughout the summer into fall. So this would be one area that they'd be sweeping through once the snow melts here and the weather starts to change, just to monitor that. And then would follow up with the regular kind of letter system, so.
Okay,
Yep.
thank you. Thanks. Is still your question? Or?
I guess it's kind of piggybacking off you guys. I recall when there was one around Culver's, if I'm not mistaken, and then like Culver's, there was one that was like basically destroying vehicles. And that's kind of what they did, was they just reached out to the landowner. It sounds like, I think it got repaired pretty quickly after that. So it's just that conversation, whether it's really a formal process or not, so.
Thank you. Did the applicant want to add anything to that, or?
Just from our standpoint there, a lot of the members that we're seeing are also target members. That's one of the reasons why we target to be in target outlots. There you go. But not only that, any road issues that were there, that's a negative effect on our customers. And we are one of those that are always try to be good stewards and make sure that nobody's gonna wanna come to our site if it's a pothole-ridden road. So those are things that our staff is constantly monitoring to make sure that, again, it adds to that customer experience that we're really tuned into. So that's all I had to say.
All right, thank you.
Yep.
Can I ask a question of him before he sits down?
Sure.
So are
Mr.
you,
Fisher.
sorry, so are you entering in, because Amanda was talking about that all those businesses have a joint agreement for maintenance. Are you now going to be a part of that, or do you join into
Yes, by
the party,
purchasing
or
that
how does
property,
that
we
work?
take over where Big O would be at, and we.
Right, their portion of
Yes.
whatever repairs are needed. Okay, great, thanks.
Any additional comment, discussion by commission? Commissioner Stevens?
I have a question on the traffic. You were saying that it's adequate at the intersection. Is there, and maybe I missed this, is there a certain volume of traffic that requires another traffic study? Was that done?
Mr. Chair, members of the commission, so there were traffic studies done both as part of the East Point and Jamaica project as well as the North Point project. So we have a bunch of data that was done both for existing conditions, full build out of North Point, projecting, I believe, out to 2040, just based on growth and general trip generation, those sorts of things. So I don't know if there's something specific that would trigger another traffic study per se, but we can definitely, if there's, another major business park addition, those sorts of things, it's definitely something that we would look into.
Okay.
Commissioner Britton?
So you mentioned that the construction project that's going to go on there to improve that intersection. If I'm remembering it correctly, whatever current level of service we have now is going to be better than what it is now. And that's the reason why we're reconstructing those portions of those intersections. And I would expect that this level of cars wouldn't significantly deplete the improvements that we're going to gain from the construction project. Would that be accurate?
Mr. Chair, members of the commission, yes, and I won't get into all of the details of the project, but just high level, adding the roundabout, taking out that signal that's in close proximity to the East Point Jamaica intersection, as well as adding those dual left turn lanes for southbound, northbound, and westbound traffic will definitely help kind of mitigate the traffic congestion we see there today.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Stevens.
I am so sorry to keep dragging this out. So this site has historically been automotive repair. And I'm just curious if anything was looked at, since they're completely redoing the site, it seems like. Was there anything done to check for like contamination of the soil and maybe there's remediation need with this massive construction project?
We did soil borings.
You want to go ahead and stand up?
Okay.
Sorry, just for the camera.
It's all right. No, we did a phase one environmental assessment on the site there to see if there was any existing known environmental issues there, as well as borings of the site throughout the site. Now, obviously, those borings are, 8 inches in diameter and whatnot, but typically if there's any leaching into the soils there, you would see that in those soils. If it's a risk that we know that we have, that demoing any existing building, that there's that potentiality for that. And with that, we're willing to accept that risk and have the funds set aside in case something would come up so we can remediate and take care of the issue.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Anything additional from commission? Any discussion? All right, at this time, if there's nothing else, I would look for a motion.
I'll motion to approve, subject to the conditions stipulated in the staff report.
I have a motion to approve from Commissioner Britton. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second from Commissioner Stevens. Any further discussion on the motion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say no. Motion carries 6-0. Move on to 6.2, Lake Flora Second Edition, PP 2023-005, with Emily Schmitz presenting.
All right, we're in business. Oh, Mr. Chair, members of the commission, good evening. As indicated, next application before you is actually an application submitted by the city. It is for the Lake Flora Second Edition plat, which is it's about 65 acres. The area is just east of Jamaica Avenue and north of 100th Street, and then just south of, as you can see here on my map, Acorn Mini Storage and Public Works. The area does have the dog park, if you're familiar with that area, just to orientate you to where we're chatting about. But some of you who've been around just a bit know that the WAG Farms, who owns a lot of property down there, works with our EDA on a regular basis as we navigate creating some developable parcels. So we're in a very similar situation as our business park continues to grow and expand to create some additional parcels for development. One other large part of the preliminary plat is expanding the city-owned pond that exists. Some of you might not even know, but it's kind of over here in this aerial image. We'd be looking to purchase some additional acreage to add to that. On my next slide will make a little bit more sense. On this image of the preliminary plat, I also wanted to note that we'll be, of course, acquiring the appropriate right-of-way along Jamaica Avenue as well as 100th Street. And that will help with future development. We're creating these parcels. We'll have all of the perimeter easements in place. So when the developer comes knocking on the door, we're ready to go. So as I mentioned, the pond LP3. Interestingly enough, this pond collects a lot of water. It's my understanding, the east side of Keats Avenue, essentially the whole length of the city. It collects all of that water. It collects here and then runs down I don't want to call it a stream. The engineers are going to get so angry with me, but it runs down, I'm going to call it the system. It runs down the system all the way to the Mississippi River. So it's very important that the city is a part of our stormwater management plan, that we start to obtain more area in this pond to help support for flood storage as well as stormwater management in the area. So as a part of this plat, we have created the area that we do need to add to this pond. So with that, I will leave the recommendation before you. If you have specific engineer pond-related questions, I have backup, don't worry. But I am here if you do have any other questions as well.
Thank you. Any questions for staff? Commissioner Rasmussen.
So the addition of this pond is essentially to take the runoff water for the future development of the 65 acres. So when it is sold and developed, we're ready for the development, correct?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Rasmussen, actually, this pond collects, it's a regional pond, so this actually collects a large portion of the city's water, so not necessarily specifically these particular parcels. When these parcels develop, they'll actually have to support their own stormwater on site.
Got it, thank you.
Commissioner Stevens?
I will only ask one, just because I'm curious. Is the watershed district going to help fund this project? Have you guys thought about going after grants or anything?
Mr. Chair, members of the commission. So each year, the city does go through the CCIP grant application process with the watershed district. And those are for projects where a developer or the city goes above and beyond some treatment needs for a specific property. And at that point, we can ask for up to 50% of the project cost to be reimbursed back to the city through the watershed district. In this case of LP3, I don't believe we're doing anything really above and beyond of what's already needed for this area. So unfortunately, I don't believe it would qualify for a CCIP grant through the watershed district, unfortunately.
Thank you.
I have a question.
Commissioner Fisher?
We all listen for the click for our microphones to turn on. Okay, so number one, so what we have in front of us is approving the subdivision tonight, correct?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Fisher, it's for the preliminary plat.
Correct. So are we approving the land purchase too? I mean, is this happening if we, I guess I'm confused at what we're looking at and what we're agreeing to, because I was expecting more in your presentation and you just stopped talking. So I'm not sure what we're
doing
here.
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Fisher, yep, I'll clarify. So it's a preliminary plat, and there wasn't a whole lot of meat in my presentation. As typically you see a preliminary plat, and we're talking about a development,
Right.
and you're talking about a building being built or roads being installed. In this particular instance, it's kind of, if you build it, they will come, right? So we're platting and creating some parcels that are ready for when that developer knocks on the door. So not a whole lot of detail at this point, but if any of these parcels do develop, they'll be
Right.
back before you.
So who owns, the Wag Farm people own it now?
Yep, the Wake Farm
So
Trust, yep.
I guess I'm confused why the city is applying for all of these
Yep.
changes.
So the city and our Economic Development Authority work with the WAG farms in our entire business park. So we've
Okay.
worked many land deals with those folks, navigating, getting some areas development ready.
Right.
And in turn, of course, our Economic Development Authority does make some money off of those processes.
Okay, and then my last question is, do we get to know how much the land purchase is going to cost the city? Or is that
Yep, Mr. Chair,
not, are
Commissioner
we
Fisher.
going too fast?
Nope, that's okay. I don't know it off the top of my head. However, I can tell you, just on the February 5th council meeting agenda was the approval of that land purchase. So I can certainly look back and follow up
I
with
was
you.
just curious, so,
Yep.
okay, I think I'm done, thanks.
If you want to know the value, check the meeting minutes for February 5th.
I will do that, thank you.
All right. Any other questions for staff? Commissioner Rasmussen?
Anything planned at the moment with the existing fire hall, or is this just to replat everything and it's gonna stay as is until the time comes?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, Commissioner Rasmussen, no plans at this time for the existing fire station. However, we will hang on to it. You just never know.
Got it.
Any further questions? All right, thank you. At this time, I will open the public hearing for this application, so anyone wishing to speak for or against the application can step to the podium. Seeing none, we'll close public hearing. Any further discussion or comments by commission? Otherwise, I would look for a motion at this time.
Motion to approve based on, recommendations in the staff report.
So I have a motion to approve from Commissioner Rasmussen. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Commissioner Wright. Any further discussion on the motion? Otherwise, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed say no. Motion carries 6-0. Item 7 is approval of the Planning Commission meeting minutes from January 23rd, 2023. Unless there are any additions or modifications, I'd look for a motion to approve.
Motion to approve minutes.
Motion to approve from Commissioner Wright. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second from Commissioner Fisher. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say no. Motion carries 6-0. Item 8 is reports. 8.1 is recap of February City Council meetings from Emily Schmitz.
Yes, Mr. Chair, Commissioners. Mr. Chair, Commissioners, they beat me to it. That was impressive. So the February 1st council meeting, they approved the annual mining permit for Wholesome. You saw that before you back in January. And then one other item to note on that February 1st agenda was the McCaddy Landing. If you recall, some folks call it the horse property, but up on Military in Jamaica, you saw a preliminary plat before you, probably just almost over a year ago now. But those folks did ask for an extension. So that preliminary plat was good for 1 year. We've extended it for 1 year. We'll see what the market does, and hopefully things can continue to move forward. And then jumping ahead to the February 15th council meeting, as I mentioned, Commissioner Fisher, that land purchase for that LP3 is on there. And then another good one to note is the Mississippi Dunes purchase agreement. So the city worked with the landowner as well as the state. We acquired some grant funding to purchase a large portion of land, about 19 acres, down along the Mississippi River. If you remember working through the Mississippi Landing preliminary plat process, our plan was to, of course, acquire additional lands to meet our park master plan down in the area. So we've been really lucky to acquire those funds, and then, of course, to work with the landowner ahead of a final plat in that particular area. So the city will have those public lands, essentially, ahead of development. So working through that. And then finally, the child care facility, O to Be Kids, was approved as well on that agenda. So we'll see that construction here in 2023. So that's all I had on the agenda, but I will certainly turn it over to Councilmember Kambata if he has anything to add for you.
Before we move on, just
Yeah.
a quick question on the Mississippi Dunes. I'm assuming that the land that was purchased was not the entire amount of land that we eventually want to have park, that would be dedicated when development occurs, and this is just the extra we were going to buy with that development that was going to go in there? So
Yep,
we can go
Mr.
ahead and take care of that piece so that we don't have to worry about it anymore, and then it's just the normal, they'll dedicate it and it'll get combined into one big thing at one point in time?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, Commissioner Britton, that's exactly the case. So we'll purchase the 19.9 acres, it's 19.1, I think, acres outright, and then the additional will come as park dedication with development.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Schmidt. I don't know if you guys are aware, but we have now had the fourth snowiest season on record at just over 70 inches of snow. So our city staff has been working hard this winter. And I just want to commend them for keeping a positive attitude and keeping the city going. Emily covered most of the business side of things. Do you guys have any questions for council that I can answer?
Any questions for Councilmember Kamada? Doesn't look like it. Thank you.
Council appreciates your guys' hard work as well. And without you guys, the city wouldn't have all of its great opportunities that it's been seen come to fruition. So thank you again.
Thank you. All right, 8.2 is response to Planning Commission inquiries. It doesn't look like we had any from last meeting. 8.3 is Planning Commission requests. Any requests for staff? I do have one. There was an article about around the metro area, there's streetlights that because of a mechanical or a manufacturing issue are turning blue. And St. Paul, I know, was asking for residents to start reporting where those are so that they can be replaced. Is that something that the city is, or Cottage Grove is also having an issue with some of those lights? I just asked because on Hinton and 70th, the roundabout, there's a couple lights there that are turning blue. And so I just don't know if that's part of the same issue or if those are just the lights how they're supposed to be.
Yeah, that's the other one I was gonna say.
Parkway.
So, Mr. Chair, members of the commission, I'm not sure. But I am more than happy to chat with our Public Works Department and our streetlight individuals to figure out what's going on, if we are also impacted by this, and then I can definitely get you some more information.
All right, thank you.
You bet.
Mr. Asmussen.
I've got something I'd like to add since you brought it up, and Ken and I talked outside about this, but some of the lights that we put up at work have adjustability on them where you can adjust the color of the light, and that was my first thought, and I started looking at spec sheets and stuff to see how many of them are actually adjustable, the LED for like a bright light to a cool light. But I did come across an article where a large number of these new LEDs are burning off the film and causing it to turn purple or blue. And interesting enough, I was visiting my parents down in Florida, other side of the country, and same thing's happening there. Random lights are different colors, and it sounds like a lot of people are struggling with this right now. And I don't know if it's a safety hazard, but it's quite annoying. It's kind of doesn't look clean and.
Kind of like it.
Commissioner Wright.
I've seen this, like you were kind of saying though too, I've seen the same thing. Like I was coming out of the VFW last Friday or whatever, and there's a string of them there right next to Menards, in between Menards and the VFW there. So just a note. So, but I mean it's funny, everybody's trying to come up with like different explanations for it, like, and it's meant to be like that. I don't know. So, but just to let you know, that's where I've seen it as well, so.
Perfect, thank you. Mr. Chair, members of the commission will definitely look into that and let you know.
All right, thank you. Any other requests from commission? Councilmember Kamada.
You know, I had the exact same question, and I brought it to Ryan Burfind in Public Works a couple of weeks ago. And I don't even think I got the word, like, purple light out of my mouth, and he's like, yep, I know. So I get the impression he's fielded that question many times. It's, as you said, it's a phenomenon that's happening nationally. And as such, there's a national shortage of the correct replacements. So in the interim, we could replace those bulbs, but they would turn purple again, or we just wait for the replacements that won't have that issue. So then it becomes a matter of, smart use of our resources in terms of labor hours and materials cost, whereby we're just gonna have to kind of accept that some of them are changing color until the proper replacements are available.
All right. Commissioner Britton.
I wasn't gonna say anything. But I don't see the blue because the lights are so bright, my photo grays tint out on me. That's all I'll say about that. But if we're going to be replacing all of these lights when a more appropriate solution is available, as Commissioner Rasmussen mentioned to me, they have lights that you can change the color of them so that it's not the bright white, that it's more of a softer white. There's certain areas of the community that you drive through that as soon as I leave that area, I can't see anymore because it was just too bright and it's nighttime. So I would just ask that if we're going to be doing all of these replacements, that could we really relook at how bright should our lights be? And what color should they be? Because the older yellowish type colored lights, I've never had a concern with in visibility, but all of these new things are actually a nuisance for some of us.
Certainly.
And everybody's eyes work differently. But, so if you could look into that, I'd
We can
appreciate it.
certainly raise that question with Public Works as they're gearing up for replacement.
All right, anything additional on that issue or any other issue? Otherwise, we'll move on to item number 9, which is adjournment. So I will look for a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn from Commissioner Fisher. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Commissioner Wright. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say no. We are adjourned 6-0.